crazy story that I'm going to call a teachable moment. So, a couple weeks ago, I'm in a city, Portland or whatever, and I'm performing at a fundraiser for this amazing organization that raises money for organizations that do social justice work. And I'm highly motivated to do a good job for them. So I create the social justice set, poetry about the environment and AIDS and ethnicity and sexuality and freedom and equality. So I perform, the audience seems to love it, I get off the stage, and the organizer, she's like, because I've offended some of the audience members, most likely with that one poem I have where I talk really explicitly about how I have sex, it has a political point. Or it could have been, those other poems where I just use the word fuck a lot. A lot. But here's the thing. I profane with a purpose. I understand profanity is irritable. It's disruptive. It's scratchy. But I tickle. I'm going to give you a little something, right? Like, get some jokes and metaphors and whatnot. And so I scratch and I tickle and I scratch and I tickle and hopefully the truth gets through. This is what I do. But I feel terrible. So I apologize. I feel terrible about it. So about a week later, I have a gig in a different city. It's called like a trans queer women's music festival. I'm so freaking excited to do this because, it's going to be a university audience. I'm going to get to just be in my fullness because it is rare as a, black queer woman Buddhist with a disability. It's rare that I get to be 100% uncensored, right? So I'm excited and the space is cool. The lineup is awesome. The other artists are all awesome. I've got an audience full of my people. So poem number 1, poem number 2, I'm killing it. Like the audience is like this and it's like this. Why? Because I'm kind of good at what I do, right? So I get cocky. I'm like, I got this. I know what I'm doing. So I'm like, I'm going to take this poem from the end of my set. I'm going to do this poem now, right? The vagina, yes. And I immediately clock that I'm not getting the reaction I normally do. Like normally I go, the vagina, yes. And the audience is like, yay, vaginas, yay, right? But now I can't really see them. They're in the dark, but I can feel their energy. And their energy is not like, yay, vaginas, which is super confusing because it's a queer women's fest, but whatever. So I keep going. First line of the poem is like, men sit and hold they dicks. They adjust, they adjust, they adjust, they dicks. And I can hear it. It's like, dicks, 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 dicks. So I start editing the poem while I'm doing it. I've been doing this poem for like a decade, so I can spit it and edit simultaneously because something is amiss. Because they're not bothered by the word dick, but they're not tickled by it. I just can't figure it out. So I'm cutting dick jokes, dick joke, dick joke, dick joke, cut, go straight to the pussy section. So I'm saying something like, women should hold their vaginas. And that's when the penny drops. Trans Queer Women's Music Festival. I'm doing a poem that is celebrating the literal vagina, and some of these ladies don't have lady parts. So now I'm like, okay, Claudia, you gotta fix this, because that shit is problematic. So I'm like, how do I re-edit the poem? Because it's hard because the piece is predicated on, the joke of the false binary of expected modes of behavior for different genders. Men get to do this, women can't do this, and it flips it, but it doesn't trouble it, which is problematic. So I'm about to figure something out when someone from the audience screams, "Some women don't have vaginas!" Bitch was angry. I know that's problematic language too, but bitch was angry. And now I am no longer rewriting my piece because the audience energy has shifted again. And I'm like, you just gonna keep on doing your poem? You're just gonna keep on doing it? Like, we've just informed you that that is inappropriate. And you're just continuing to say those words? Because here's the thing. I can't stop. For me, performance is like being on a trapeze, right? Where you just have to grab the next rung, and if you miss it, and it's just hard to get back. So I know that I can't lose the rhythm of the piece, but I can also tell that I need to respond to this shit immediately, because this audience is not going to stick around for another minute and a half for me to finish the poem. They are demanding some reaction. But I can't stop the poem, because if I stop the poem, I might as well, I'll have to start over at the beginning, and that's even worse, and I've been rewriting it as I'm going along, so I cut 2 more lines, I get to the end of the stanza, and I say something like, I can, tell as I'm spitting this that it's really mad cisgendered, and, just for the purposes of the poem, if you could go with it. And I continue with the poem. And, the next poem I do, talks about cisgender and trans issues, but whatever. In that poem, I'm not doing the right thing. I know this. And also, the thing I said inside the poem, that was the wrong thing too. Because, what do marginalized communities hear all the time? We, the majority, are fine with how everything is. And yeah, I know that you're all excluded and, oppressed and whatever. But if you could just go with it, that would be great. Thanks. So, I get that me asking them to just go with it for the purposes of that poem is problematic, although I will stand by celebrating vaginas. I will march in a parade for that. Yes, I will. But I get that in that context it was problematic. So I get off the stage, and of course the organizer is then, like the MC, she's all like, we, the organizers, we believe in all of these things. And she says a bunch of things that I actually believe in too, regarding trans community and queer issues and all of that. But basically, me, bus. Because she's saying, we do not co-sign any of her stuff. So, you just feel free to have nasty feelings about her. That is what took place there. I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but that is how it played out in the moment. And weirdly enough, ironically enough, the other space I was in, the space where it was like conservative Christians possibly being upset by me talking about my sexuality, that space was more inclusive than the other space I was in, where they had decided that I was using the wrong language and saying the wrong things and having the wrong ideas and expressing them wrongly. And I was not the only one to be corrected while she was on stage. And it's complicated because, yes, you have to interrupt things when they happen. You have to interrupt things and shut it down in the moment. If somebody says something sexist or heterosexist or racist, you just have to shut it down, respond immediately. And yet, I feel like we in our community are fighting so hard and throwing so many punches that we are hitting our allies. 'Cause I'm an ally. It's a trans, queer women's fest. I've been hired on the basis of my poetry to perform at this event. Chances are, you don't need to fight me. Chances are, if that woman hadn't screamed at me and startled me, I probably would have more gracefully been able to acknowledge the fact that I had accidentally essentialized gender to physiology, and, potentially, we could have had something special happen, a learning moment, a teachable moment. But instead, we had a policing moment, a moment where I was told exactly what I was allowed and not allowed to do. And I get that we must be vigilant, but I caution against our hypervigilance, because it's not our job to be the thought police. It's not our job to be the thoughtful police. It's our job to make sure that there's dialogue and equity. But screaming at someone on stage is not dialogue. It's heckling. Even if you're heckling for justice.